In this video, we're going to throw it back to the 80s and I'm going to redesign the Fox body Mustang into something that could be built today. So I'm going to take a 2015 front end bumper, modify it a little bit to make it a little bit more boxy to suit the Fox body design. And then I'm going to take a Lincoln Navigator headlight, throw it on there, modify that as well to make it fit the overall design. But before we jump into the redesign, let's have a look at the generations of this legendary car, which is the Mustang. Up here, we have the 1965 fastback Mustang. If I were to pick a body style for the Mustang, it's definitely going to be the fastback, my favorite style of the Mustang. And you can see the 1965 here, it has a very clean looking design and the greenhouse looks super short, almost centered in the middle of the design. And what I like about the 67 changes, this is by far my favorite Mustang of all time, the 1967 Mustang fastback, as you can see down here in the painting I did on this. I love the changes that they did. A very subtle change, but it kind of increases the greenhouse width or area when you look at it specifically in the rear. So we have the line of the greenhouse now stretches all the way back, almost connecting to the rear end corner of this design, and it stretches further back than it did in the 1965. And this change right here, you can see we have more of a boot or trunk in the 65. In the 67, that's almost completely eliminated. And I think the proportions comparing these two, the 67 just looks a little better, in my opinion. Moving on to the 1978, now the muscle car era and the big, massive V8s with hundreds of horsepower is now over. And this styling, I'm not sure about it really. Not one of my favorite Mustangs. We still have this fastback design, but something is just lagging here. And I'm not sure I do like the greenhouse treatment and how this goes back like this. I'd rather have it just cut off like we have in the previous models like this. It looks more sporty and more Mustang to me. Just looking at this 78 Mustang, it feels weaker than the previous generations. And we also have these ugly bumpers stuck onto this design. But then we come in to the Fox body designs. And this is the one we're gonna focus on in this video. This is the one I'm gonna redesign and try to make it look like something more modern. I do think this type of styling, the boxiness of cars, I think that's coming back. We see that a lot with EVs now, which is interesting because it's not the most aerodynamic shape, but it still, in my opinion, looks very cool and it looks clean and stylish. So what I'm gonna do is just raise them. You see the shoulder line and how the greenhouse dips down into the shoulder line? That's one of the changes I'm gonna make, just raise up the shoulder line to go in one single line all the way going back. And of course, there are a lot of changes I'm gonna do. Lower it to the ground, make the body go lower, change the wheels and the wheel arches too, and have some fun with this later in the video. Now going into 1996, here we get the melted cheese Mustang. It looks like they took a Fox body design and left it out in the sun for too long, so everything just started to melt and becoming super soft. It's the complete opposite of the Fox body styling, with very soft and rounded corners everywhere. It's still a pretty cool looking design. It looks sporty and I like this intake here. I like this treatment. I think this is something I'm gonna implement in my redesign of the Fox body design when we go into that. Then moving into 2001, and now they sharpened everything up. So it's like they're going back and forth from the Fox body up here to soft, and then they took the 1994-96 model and sharpened that design up, and out came this. This specific model right here is a 2001. I think it looks pretty good as well. Prefer the sharper design over the melted cheese up here. Now, in 2005, something really cool happened, and that was that the Ford designers said, let's go back to the late 60s. Let's modernize that classic iconic design into a new modern car, and that's exactly what happened in 2005. I'm a huge fan of this Mustang design. I think it's such a good idea to go back to the original shapes. You see the fastback designs reminds me a little bit of the 1965 because we still have sort of a trunk in the rear, so it doesn't go all the way back as a 67. And in 2010, I think they refined this design even more and created a more modern looking design with a lot more nice surface treatments right here. We have this super strong shoulder line, which I love, and also this line cutting from the front end going into the design and into the rear as well. And we have this hockey stick design that we had in 2005 right here as well. A little bit more dynamic with this angle now angled back more to create this forward motion. I used to own a 2012 Mustang GT and I just loved that car. It was like a modern muscle car. In 2015, we got the S550. What I think happened here, I do miss the hockey shape in the side. I think this looks good, but I think this is a detail that they could have added to bring in more Mustang in this design. I also think that the front end now is this is where the Mustang transitioned into more of a sports car instead of a muscle car with this sloping front end, and everything is tighter and narrower, shorter. It doesn't stick up too high, the graphics in the front, making it more of a sports car in my opinion. It still looks good, and I prefer the pre-facelift, the 2015, over the, I think that came out in 2018, the facelift, or 17, where they have even more of a sports car design in the front end. And then I obviously had to throw in what we have today, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, a crossover EV that they slapped the Mustang name onto to make a little bit more sales and have it, you know, connect with something in history of Ford. But in my opinion, this is not a proper Mustang. It doesn't have anything relatable to any previous generation of Mustang. To me, it's just a marketing tactic, and I understand why Ford did it. It's their first full EV, and they want to have it be something special, and that's why they call it the Mustang Mach-E. Yes, we have some Mustang graphics front and back, but that's pretty much it. So now let's jump in and continue in Photoshop, and let's see what we can do with the Fox body design. As I said, I think boxy designs are actually coming back now, and this all goes in cycles. So we have the 60s designs of Mustangs being pretty boxy, but still have some nice surfacing and sculpturing inside of the bodywork. And I think that is the best combination, the best mix of boxiness in combination with some emotion in the design. The Ford Fox body designs in the 70s and the 80s, that did not have a lot of emotion in it. It's almost like two boxes. You have the box, the lower box, which is the body itself, and then you have another box on top of that with two angles, that being the greenhouse, and that was it. I think it creates for a very unique looking design of the Fox body, and it looks cool. I mean, you can make these look really cool if you just modify a few simple things, the stance and the wheels specifically. So what I'm gonna do here is just try to take some features from previous Mustangs, apply it onto here. For example, I'm gonna take the 2015 front bumper and add it to this design. What I need to do here though, if I'm gonna add that front bumper, is it does have a little bit more angles to it, specifically the wings inside the bumper. That's not gonna be very, you know, in line with the rest of the design philosophy of the Fox body. So I'm gonna straighten those out and have more 90-degree angles in the front end. I think that's gonna suit this redesign more. For the headlights, I tried for the long, I think that was probably one of the last things I did in this redesign, just figuring out how to modernize these headlights, because the problem is today headlights, they shrink and they just become narrower and narrower. And now if you're looking, for example, a Lucid, it just has one strip of LEDs and that's it. So having this massive area surface of the headlights and trying to make those modern looking, it's a challenge to make that happen. So what I did, I looked at the Lincoln Navigator headlights and I thought they would suit the area for where the original housing for the headlights are for the Mustang Fox body, and I applied those, and then I tried to redesign the interior, the internal parts of that headlights to make it look like something modern and something more Mustang, and not just copy paste a Lincoln Navigator headlight and slap it on there. I want to have it a clear identity at night too, and that means working with the LEDs and try to figure out how to implement those into the front end and make a clear front fascia. Overall, I just wanted to keep the overall Fox body's proportions, because if I change those, then it's not going to be clear that it's a Fox body. I think the proportions of the car is what really makes this what it is, and I want to keep those intact while still modernizing everything else, the graphics, the wheels, and some other parts around the car. I also took the side mirrors of a 2015 and slapped them on here. I think they suit this car overall. They just look really cool. The wheels, of course, they need to grow in size, because if we look at the stock wheels of cars of the 70s and 80s, there are lots they were like 16 inches, maybe 17 if you were really crazy back in the days. But now we have 21 inches, and I want to put something like that on here. Also increase the width specifically of the rear tires, but also the front a little bit more. And I want to have, I think it was the 1994 Mustang had that intake in the lower part of the body. So I want to create something similar like that. It's probably not a functional intake, but it still looks cool to have some graphics in the bottom part, because that will break up the big mass surface that is the side of this car. It's so flat and uninspiring, so I want to break that up a little bit in the lower part of the side view to create this intake in the bottom. This was a super fun redesign to do, and I think, you know, I don't think this could come back as an EV, because that would just ruin what the Fox body Mustang is. You want this with the 5-liter engine, and I wanted to come back something like this. It would be cool to see someone build this, take the front bumper of a S550 and just apply it onto here and modify the lights and so on to create something like this. And that's it for this redesign. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.